Hey guys, so since there were a lot of deck lists available from those that made the top cut at the YCS, I thought I'd go through as many Tri-Brigade lists that I could find and break down the most common ratios of the core main deck and extra deck cards, as well as the most played hand traps and staples. So if you want more data video like these, then make sure to subscribe. Let me know if these kind of videos are helpful. Now if you were to add up the decks that made top 32 in each of the 4 regions, you get something like this where Tri-Brigade took up about 30% of the slots. The deck also won EU and the South American YCS, really showing its dominance. Now there were 37 Tri-Brigade decks in total that made it within the top 128 decks, and among that, 31 were publicly available through deck profiles and other means, and a big thanks to Lunderty again for his spreadsheet with all of the deck lists. I'll link that sheet and his Discord link in the description below. Now when you look at the deck size, 23 or 74% of the list played it at 40, but a good chunk in 7 of the 31 lists played it at 41, with one list playing 46 cards. If I were to try to split it by variant, we have 9 Zoodiac variants, followed by 21 Pure and 1 Ancient Warrior. Now for the rest of this video, I am going to break down the ratios by Pure and Zoodiac variants, and to keep it simple, I'm just going to add the 1 Ancient Warrior list with the Pure category. And if you were wondering, more Zoodiac variants were playing 41 cards, taking up 5 of the 7. So in terms of the ratios of the core main deck Tri-Brigade cards, they are mostly well established by now. Norval, Kit, and Fractal were all played at 3 in the Pure and Zoodiac variants, except there was one Zoodiac variant that played Fractal at 2. Karis seems to mostly be played at 2 in Pure and Zoo variants, with the other option being 3. Probably has a lot to do with the decks that play Pot of Desires, which I'll get to later. As for Revolt, with Pure it seems like it was an even split of playing it at 2 or 3, whereas in the Zoodiac variant, almost all of the lists were playing it at 3. It is searchable now through Backrow, but this card is really what gets Tri-Brigade going, so it's not surprising to see it being played at 3. Some other key cards in Tri-Brigade, but not actually archetype specific, we have Tenki, which was pretty much always played it at 3, except for this one Pure list that played it at 2. As for Rescue Cat in the Pure, we had 17 of the 22 lists played at 3, with 4 lists playing it at 2. Now the one list that did not play Rescue Cat at all is Ancient Warrior, which of course is not actually pure, but was categorized that way for the sake of this video. As for the Zoodiac variant, there were actually 2 lists that played Rescue Cat as well, with one list playing it at 3 and another list playing it at 1. Now for the Zoodiac cards in the Zoo variants, of course it's a really small package. They're all playing Rapture at 1 since it is limited, and Thoroughblade seems to be mostly played at 2 while a third of the Zoo list played it at 1. Ram actually was only played in 1 list while the rest did not play it at all, and Barrage was played in all lists except for 1 that did not run it. So now let's take a look at how many lists ran Pot of Desires versus Prosperity. For the Pure list, 9 of the 22 lists played Desires while half played Prosperity. There were actually 2 lists that did not play Desires or Prosperity, one of them being the Ancient Warrior variant. For the Zoodiac variants, they all played Desires instead, which makes sense since their extra deck becomes way tighter by having to fit their Zoo monsters, so they can't afford to banish anything with Prosperity. So next let's cover some extra deck monsters. So first we have Farragut, which will be the first Tri-Brigade extra deck monster to hit the board and gets the play going. And 19 of the 22 Pure lists played it at 2, while the rest played it at 1. As for Backrow, just over half played it at 2, whereas the rest played it at 1. Rugal was mostly played at just 1 and the other option was 2, whereas Shurug was mostly played at 2 while the other option was 3. Shurug's effect to banish is certainly powerful and is also a link forward to make the most out of Revolt. Ancient Warrior Oaths, which is one with the bounce effect, while not a Tri-Brigade monster, was seen in all lists and primarily played at 1, with a few lists playing it at 2. For the Zoo variants, they all played these cards at 1 except for Shurug, where they played it at 2. Now for the Zoodiac extra deck monsters, no need to spend much time on it. They're all just playing Borbo, Trakanine, and Tiger Mortar at 1, rest in peace Strident. Just to cover some other commonly played extra deck monsters, this includes Almirage, which can get something like Hit to Grave to trigger effect. Doom Eagle can really help deal some massive damage as well, and Appaloosa is a typical card to end on with, the Revolt set. Access code is another link for this deck can make to enable those OTKs. As for AA Zeus, it was played in 20 of the 31 lists, and of course the Zoo variants were all running it, but half of the Pure lists were still running this card as well. As for hand traps, Tri-Brigade certainly do play a lot, with Pure lists having a slightly higher median number in 12 than Zoo with 11. Among all 31 Tri-Brigade lists, hand traps in the main range from 9 to 15, while about 3 to 9 hand traps in the side. The deck is pretty much loaded with hand traps. As for backrow removal in the side deck, not a lot really, with a median of 3 cards. In the side among all 31 lists, it ranged from 1 to 6 backrow hate cards. And finally, let's cover the most played hand traps and staples for this deck. Ash is just a guaranteed number 1 regardless of the deck, and it was played in every Tri-Brigade list. Imperm was a close second, being played in all but one list, and they all main decked it except for one. Nibiru was quite popular in this deck as well, although they did all side it if they played it. Droll was played in 26 lists and mostly in the side, since Drytrons were the next best deck in this format. Gamma was also seen in 26 lists, and they did all main deck it because they tend to trigger a lot of effects that can bait hand traps without having any monsters on the field, so Gamma is live quite a lot with this deck. Next we have Ghost Spell, which is quite versatile right now against many of the top decks. DD Crow is pretty popular in Tri-Brigade as well, since it is a winged beast after all. Then we have some other staple hand traps like Effect Veiler, Lancia, and Skullmeister, which have been seeing play for quite a while now. Next for staples, of course, no surprise, we have Imperial Order as number 1 in this deck and played in all lists, and I'm actually surprised that 3 lists did not main deck this card. Really hope this card gets banned again, and I say this when I play the card myself. Next is Call by the Grave at 29 of the 31 list, no surprise there, and some Backrow hate and Twin Twisters, which is very popular with this deck. Makes sense considering that some of the Tri-Brigade monsters effects trigger when they're sent to the grave. Similar to Imperial Order, Anti-Spell Fragrance is almost as annoying and seen in 24 of the 31 list, but all in the side when played. Harpy's Feather Duster was played quite a lot as well, and surprisingly 8 lists actually main decked this card. Next we have Solemn Strike, which about half of the Tri-Brigade list played and all main decked as well. Pankratops was next and it was all in the side of course. Solemn Judgment was not as popular but played in about quarter of the list, all in the side so they can put it in when they know that they'll be going first. Lastly, we have Cosmic Cyclone as the less popular backrow removal, and Dark Roller no more being seen in 6 lists. Gamma Seal was also seen in 6 lists too, and seemed to be popular among other decks as well. Alright guys, so that was it for the analysis of the Tri-Brigade list that topped the YCS. Whether you play Tri-Brigade or want to get better at going against Tri-Brigade, hope this video helped out. Take care guys.